The highest compliment of all is when you are saluted by your peers to be recognized to feel right at home near a warm fireplace. But oftentimes we find it difficult to pull up a chair, frozen by the cold shoulders of those gathered near it. Which leads us to the question, how do we connect with others? Where do we even begin? And it begins outside this cabin, as a bear looks upon these cuddled humans and couldn't help but wipe the tear of disappointment with the back of its paw. So he asked the fox, who was very wise but couldn't care less about him, for advice, and the fox said, "Ugh, networking. Trust me, just put yourself out there. It works," to chase him away. But the bear shook the fox's two paws and hot diggity. He got a net, he rented a boat, and waited for this net to work. "Come in here, friends. Come in here, investors. Yup. Anytime now. Sure hope this works." As you can see, when we first start to network, we assume it means casting wide and catching as many people as we can. But real connection begins with something much quieter, something much simpler. And that is being findable. They say a crush develops after 3 sightings. Same hour, same day, same place. For example, there was a naughty barista who wanted to flirt with the customer, and how she flirt was, she delivered the coffee herself, then hinted her feelings by saying something like this: "I was really tired today." Something completely random, but personal. That's the clue. Seeing this, the customer thought, I think I'm sensing something here. So he went back home and thought for a day or two on whether to ask her out or not. And of course, the result is, why not? So he went back to the cafe, same time, same day, same place, but she wasn't there. He came back the following week, but nope, she wasn't there either. And he's not going to ask an employee for a number. That's romantic fiction, not reality. And as time passed, he slowly lost interest and eventually stopped going back altogether. Meanwhile, the naughty barista, who had a very inconsistent schedule, wondered why he never called her back. Is it... Am I unattractive? She thought she was rejected and was very, very sad. And as you can see, being findable is the first condition of good connection. Thankfully, our bear had iron-willed discipline. He showed up at the river every day and was noticed by a group of people who were interested in him.
"Wow, you're a big mouse, aren't you? I've never seen a mouse as big as you. Come along and hang around with us. We can use some big cheese."
Our first opportunity. The bear had finally made purpose in life and gestured after the mice, when suddenly, "Wait!" a man had shouted. This man grabbed the bear by the arms and told it was making a grave mistake. "You, bear, were about to get shot in the dark. Bears can't build careers around mice." The man shoved the mice away, and the mice looked back, furrowing their brows. "I was born with a burning desire to help strange lost animals. And let me help you by telling you the story of Guitar Wall Jack." Jack is a man who has a guitar hung on his walls, but spent his entire day fixing computers. And why the guitar, you ask? Jack was playing the guitar one day when someone approached him and said, "Hey, you're pretty good. Bring that to our shop on Friday. We need a man like you." Jack accepted this kind man's offer and practiced day and night, but his parents were furious. They raised a son for 20 years so he'd pay their bills, and they knew very well that music don't pay the bills. So Jack had to persuade them. He said please, and they said no. That was not a good strategy. So this time he told his parents, "Give me one chance. One chance, and if I blow it, I'll get a job like everyone else." And his parents said no. But thankfully, Jack was talking to himself. So he marched to the shop, played his guitar, and made the best performance of his life. And it was a success. They loved it. Then the clerk leaned over saying, "I was right about you. We need a guy like you here." Jack's heart jumped in excitement. He had finally made it. Then the clerk said, "You'd be perfect for our next computer guy." Huh? Well, the clerk thought Jack looked smart. After all, if you play an instrument, you look smart. So he thought Jack would make a perfect computer guy. "Of course," Jack said with one of those bittersweet smiles, "but still, It's a decent job, it's stable, it pays well, and the world needs more computer guys. So Jack hung his guitar on the wall and decided to focus his career on computers. Years later, a man entered his shop and asked Jack what that guitar was. Hey, that's a pretty good guitar. You play? Jack looked at the man. He had a very strange vibe about him. Then he looked at the guitar and he said, "No, I'm just a computer guy. Do you need help choosing a computer, sir?" "Oh, that's too bad." The man left the store, and shortly after, he let out a sigh. He was a music producer looking for talent, and he was running out of places to look. "So you see, dear bear," the man who grabbed the bear continued, "when our first opportunity arrives, we often take it, not because it's right for us, but because we don't know ourselves or the world well enough to know the difference. So go out there and learn more about the world before you make a choice." The man pushed the bear away, who happened to fall and stumble upon some fancy-looking bears. These bears were so fancy, our bear thought, "Hey, I want to be like those guys," and chased after them. Meanwhile, the mice... Let's just say mice never let small things go. The fancy bears walked into the building, but our bear was cut off by two big guards. How smart of them to have two guards instead of one, for if there were only one guard, our bear would have walked through. So our bear stood in front of the glass windows, wondering how to get in. Next to him was a man named Jerry. Jerry too stood in front of the glass, wondering how to get into the building for the sweet, juicy connections he wanted. We're all in there. Jerry looked at his bank account, smacked his lips. Okay, then pressed the big loan button. A man's first loan is very special. It's the moment he discovers that his future self has invested in his early bad ideas. With the money, Jerry bought a suit so fine it practically opened the door for him. And when he got into the building, Jerry was a hit. He shook hands like a politician, sang some Japanese karaoke, and he gave these folks such a fine night that everybody remembered him. Everybody remembered Jerry, but nobody knew where to use him. So it wasn't a surprise when Jerry was laying on his bed, scrolling his phone, to realize, why is nobody contacting me? Oh, wait, there is one contact. His future self wants his money back. Jerry didn't know what to do, so he sat on his bed and seriously thought about his situation and came to a wise conclusion. I need a better suit. So he took a bigger loan and bought a better suit, and boy did he look good. But opportunities kept dodging him. One day, he was singing a love song when someone pulled him aside and said, "Jerry, you're incredible. I mean, wow. You do great in entertainment. You nail it." Jerry laughed it off, but when he returned to his bed, he thought, wait a moment. Entertainment? I'm looking for a job in finance. So he picked up his phone, he scrolled down his list, there was no contacts, and he thought, you know what? I need a better suit. Meanwhile, our bear reached his paw in, and through the crack in the window, he grabbed one of Jerry's suit. He quickly learned that this fancy technology allowed him to enter that building. But when he entered the building and greeted these fancy bears, all they did was glance back. And maybe give him a clap or two. Then return to their business. They had no use for this new bear. So the bear had to get their attention. So he began thinking like this. What can they do for me that would make me happy? He went to the river, picked up salmon, and threw it at the fancy bears with an expression like this. Go on, take it, eat it. The fancy bears looked confused. What is this bear trying to do? There's a man in Cincinnati that can tell you. His name is Tom, and Tom is a refrigerator salesman. Yes, refrigerators. It was 2 a.m. Tom woke up in the middle of the night and opened his fridge for a can of soda. That's when he realized this fridge, it worked all night and all day, even as we sleep. Tom was moved by the sheer devotion of this glorious icebox and thought, a machine this loyal will sell itself. So he'd visit every house in the neighborhood and tell them exactly that. But no matter how much Tom praised the machine, the refrigerators did not sell. But no worries, Tom knew exactly what was going on. His customers made a poor decision. They were uninformed, and once they are informed, they're gonna come crawling back and beg him to sell one by next Tuesday. But when Tom looked the other way, he saw yet another salesman selling some of the worst quality fridges in the world. That's essentially like a melting ice cube. And yet he had the most sales in the region. Tom looked at that and thought, that man, he's a fraud. I bet he bought his own refrigerators and stacked them in some warehouse somewhere. As Tom headed to the next sale, he noticed one of the Frost refrigerators at the owner's house. I see you got one of those there, Tom said with a cheeky grin. You've noticed the noise, I assume? The owner looked at him and said, Oh yeah, now that you mention it, it was a bit noisy. I remember. It took me a few nights to get used to it. Then, sir, do I have the fridge for you? It's quiet, it'll save your electric bills by double its price, and boy, is the water glacier kissing cold. Ooh. Now, do we have a deal? Me? Oh, I hardly use that thing. I eat out most nights and I don't believe in groceries. Truth be told, I only bought that thing because an empty kitchen looked kinda, like odd. Tom had never considered that some customers don't care about the values, the quality, the features. In this case, our customer cared more about his appearance. Same for a bear. To him, a salmon is a gift from the gods. How could anyone not like that? But as soon as he tried to figure out what other people wanted, his head began to sizzle in pain. There was a young woman who had a similar problem. She spent 5 years, 5 long years, perfecting her manuscript, and now it was finally finished. Yes, it was about a young woman and her pet crow hunting down the criminals behind the assassination of a noble civil rights leader. She giggled in joy, then began contacting the agents. For those who don't know, agents are those who connect writers with publishers. In some Asian countries, there is no such thing as an agent. In those countries, you have to contact the publisher yourself. So she contacted an agent, 100 of them, and waited for 12 weeks to get no reply. No way. She nearly fainted. She did her research. Everybody that read that manuscript thought it was amazing, including successful writers. But as the months passed by, 2, 3, 5 months, 8 months, eventually turning into years, she lost confidence in herself completely. That's when a contact arrived. She jumped up and ran all the way to the building, which was about 20 blocks away, with proper pacing, to make sure her agent received her manuscript instead of using an email like everyone else does. The agent loved it, and in 2 days, she got a publishing deal. Wait, 2 days? Doesn't a contract like this usually take a few months? She asked. Then the agent said, well, we've always been searching for manuscripts like this. If you've contacted us years ago, then we would have signed you a deal instantly. She thought her long wait was a sign of her failure, but in reality, she was just waiting to find the right audience, the right people, because good connections is also about random matchmaking. That's the luck factor. So as our bear wondered what people wanted, another group of bears arrived, and they ate his salmon. And once they did, they looked delighted. Then they ran away. Our bear immediately pursued after them, but they disappeared into a large crowd. How does one find a small group of bears in a large crowd? In the middle of the streets was a performer named Frank. Frank wanted to be a celebrity. He wanted the big life, and he was going to get that using a drum solo, a crazy drum solo. But it didn't get as much attention as he had thought. So what Frank did was he diversified his act. Surely, the more acts I perform, the more audiences I can hit. It's mathematics. So he played the violin, then did a comedic dance with the monkey, then some historical satire with Napoleon, then he did some miming. It attracted a lot of attention, But nobody followed him. They saw him once, then be gone. Frank was devastated and exhausted from preparing all these ideas. And since the work wasn't sustainable, he had to slowly begin to quit. So now he does simple drum acts and used his remaining time to study for, I don't know, accounting? But to his surprise, when he did one simple act, he attracted a lot more attention than doing 12 different acts. I'm a late bloomer, Frank gasped in joy. He ripped apart his textbooks and felt a very strong sense of satisfaction when doing so, and went back to experimenting crazy new ideas. But as soon as he did, people began to leave him again. If we compare this to a restaurant, Frank the musician would be like a steakhouse that sold bubble tea, and occasionally the chef would come out to do magic tricks when all the people wanted was a good steak. Our bear studied Frank and discovered the secret in finding those special bears. What he did was, he stood in the middle of the streets and he sold nothing but salmon all day. He wore salmon t-shirts, he wore salmon hats, and called himself the Salmon Guy. And when people walked past by, they recognized him as, oh, it's that Salmon Guy. And when they had friends who were interested in salmon, he was referred to effectively. And this is where a bear made a genius move. When he sold the pink salmon to these fine bears, he didn't just sell the salmon. He did something a bit extra, which is the key in making good connections. And let me hint you on what that is. There was a comedian named Don who stood behind the curtains of a long wooden stage, thinking, will they laugh or will I die out here? He sweated more than usual, his stomach twisted, but he made sure to peep out those curtains to study what type of jokes worked so he can use it for his act later on. As you can see, he really wanted to succeed. The moment they called him, he walked out there, trying his best to look tough. And he said, I want to be a director in the future. You know what I'll do? I'll cast Bruce Lee as Frodo Baggins and Donald Trump as Gandalf the Grey. You know why? I want to be the director of national security. He managed to get a laugh here and there, but for 5 years, he didn't get anywhere. Eventually, Don had to quit comedy. And the sad part was, nobody knew he was gone. And for a long time, Don regretted his decision. He couldn't stop thinking of jokes, even in normal life. He kept thinking, man, if I made this joke on that stage, and if the audience laughed. He kept thinking of that. So when Don was a middle-aged man, he returned to comedy, not to make it to the big leagues, but to persuade himself that his jokes just weren't that good. And to his surprise, the crowd loved it, but not in a way that just barely keeps him afloat. It exploded. Don was now popular. And the reason behind this is very simple. Before, Don used to chase whatever joke that was popular, and because of that, the crowd may laugh, but they would not remember him. But once Don began telling jokes that he liked at an elder age, because he couldn't really care less about what was popular at the time, people began to recognize him. They recognized his personality. So our bear didn't care about the salmon. He didn't care about his job, his title, his product, his company. He used that as an excuse to get close to these bears and shared his personality. Once he did that, the bears came back, but not for the product or whatever he was selling. They came back for him. After this long journey, the bear finally found a group to belong in, a home to call, and sat in a warm fireplace together just before the cold of winter. So, to summarize our lessons, today's story was designed to persuade the audience that the most important thing is to know yourself and to know your people. Networking is a journey to discover what you like and how much of that elapses with other people's interests. And once you figure out who you are, all you have to do is maintain consistency. Be predictable, signal yourself, like going to a lighthouse, same hour, same day, same place, and just shooting down these beams of light at people, saying, hey guys, I'm over here. And remember, the product is not the product, but your personality. You're selling yourself. You want people to come back for you and nothing else. And once you do this, you'll build healthy relationships in no time. Thank you very much for watching till the end of the video. If you need a user's manual to understand how the human mind works, you came to the right place. I pray for your success and happiness, and I will see you guys next time.